क्या आप IAS की तैयारी कर रहे हैं और कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स को 2.5 लाख तक की फीस नहीं पे करना चाहते? अगर हाँ, तो 22,500 रुपए में घर बैठ के StudyIQ के पेनड्राइव कोर्स के साथ आप IAS की तैयारी कर सकते हैं। आज ही विजिट करें।
Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Icici Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about the concerns around corporate governance in India. Recently there were few incidents that throws light on the corporate governance and calls for a better mechanism. So in this light we will discuss what are the concerns around the corporate governance in India. First of all, what is corporate governance? Corporate governance refers to a set of rules or mechanisms or processes by which a corporation or a firm is controlled or governed. So, if these rules, mechanisms or the processes are in the right direction, the firm or the company will benefit. And if they are not in the proper direction, what will happen? The company will lose. So, concerns around corporate governance means there are some limitations or challenges before the corporate governance and we will discuss them in this lecture. First of all, let us analyze what is the issue. There are growing concerns around the corporate governance in many of the companies or firms in India, both in the private sector as well as in the public sector. We will discuss a few incidents in this lecture, and this concerns around the corporate governance calls for a greater examination of the role of directors and also the audit firms. Two stakeholders are here very important. One is the directors and the second one is the audit firms. Now let us understand some related incidents that throws light that corporate governance in India is facing some challenges. The first one is the ICICI Bank example. Recently, the managing director and the CEO of the ICICI Bank, Ms. Chanda Kochar, she requested for an early retirement from the leadership of the bank. ICICI Bank is the second largest private sector bank in India, and she requested for a retirement or early retirement. And what was the reason? This request for the early retirement was on the background or on the basis of allegations against her for not disclosing the conflict of interest caused by certain transactions between the borrowers of the bank, especially the Videocon group, and also some entities controlled by her spouse. So there were certain allegations, and on the light of this she requested for a early retirement. And if we take a second example, that is the ILNFS case. In the ILNFS case, the auditor of the firm found out that a subsidiary of the ILNFS has incurred large losses, and this losses caused by the subsidiary could impact the continuance of the subsidiary as a going concern. But what was the problem? The audit report does not name the subsidiary or even the extent of losses. There is only a mention that a subsidiary of the ILNFS has incurred a lot of losses. So without mentioning the name or the extent of the losses, merely mentioning about the subsidiary was not enough, and the audit firm replied that this is out of the scope of auditing that disclosure of name of the firm or the subsidiary or the extent of losses. So these two incidents throws light that the corporate governance is weak. On the basis of these two recent incidents, we will analyze the status of corporate governance, how weak it is or what are the challenges in the corporate governance. Now let us analyze what are the concerns in the corporate sector. Now let us analyze what are the concerns in the corporate governance sector in India. The first one is regarding the private sector banks. The private sector banks including ICICI Bank, the Yes Bank, Axis Bank, etc., which are the leading private sector banks in India, are facing certain turmoil, and it shows that the bank boards are weak. So what happens when the bank boards are weak? It is the bank boards which will derive mechanisms or rules or guidelines for the functioning of the bank. That means the corporate governance or the governance structure is established by the bank boards, and when the bank boards are weak, the corporate governance will also be weak. So this is the first concern. The second one is regarding the public sector banks or the PSBs. The PSBs are mounted with NPAs or non-performing assets. So there is a serious bank loan crisis in the public sector banks, and this bad loan crisis is accused of crony capitalism and weak governance. So here also we will see there is an issue of weak governance. Now the third challenge is the overstating and understating in the book of records. The book of records means the profit and loss account of the bank and also the balance sheet. These two are referred as the books of accounts. The financial position of a bank or any company, any firm is reflected in its book of accounts. It is according to the book of accounts or the balance sheet we will conclude whether a company is making a loss or a profit. So in case of bank also it is the balance sheet and the profit and loss account which will reflect the financial position of the bank. Now what is meant by overstating and understating? In many private sector banks there is a serious issue of this overstating and understating. So overstating means in case of profits the books of account will show an amount which is not the actual amount but more than the actual amount. So it will show amounts which are more than the actual amounts. In case of ICICI banks, the profits of the ICICI banks have shrunk by 1/3 in the past 5 years. And in case of Axis Bank, the profits have become 1/10 in the last 10 years. But in the actual book of records, this is not shown or reflected. Now, what is meant by understating? Understating happens with bad loans. The bad loans in ICICI Bank and the Axis Bank have grown 5 to 10 times in the past 5 years. But in the book of records or book of accounts, it is not reflected. It means there is an understating. Understating of bad loans and overstating of profits. This is also a major challenge in the corporate governance. And the fourth one is regarding the audit reports. The audit reports must present the actual picture of a company or any bank, but many of the audit reports shows that it does not present the actual picture of the company. For example, ILNFS case. In case of ILNFS, the auditors claim that the issue was a case of cash flow mismanagement, and the auditors claim that it is not within the scope of audit. So improper audit records or audit reports are also an issue in corporate governance. Now, on the basis of all these challenges in the corporate governance, a committee was appointed in order to give recommendations regarding the corporate governance, and this committee was popularly known as Uday Kodak Committee because it was headed by Uday Kodak. And the SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, has accepted almost 40 out of 80 recommendations provided by this committee. And few of these recommendations are very important, which we will discuss in this lecture now. The first recommendation is regarding the separation of roles. Listed companies, that means those companies that are listed on a stock exchange, and those companies with more than 40% public shareholding. So if a company has more than 40% public shareholding and the company is listed on a stock exchange, there should be separate roles of Chairman and MD CEO. So one person can become the MD or the CEO, but the same person cannot become the chairperson. So there should be separate roles for these two positions. And the roles and responsibilities of the MD, CEO and the chairperson should also be properly defined. That means there should not be a duplication of work done by the MD or the CEO and the chairperson. Also, the chairmanship should be limited to only non-executive directors. And also, a person who is a part of the promoter group cannot be appointed as an independent director. The second important recommendation was regarding the mandatory disclosure. A listed company, that is a company listed on the stock exchange, has to mandatorily disclose consolidated quarterly results, and this mandatory disclosure must be from financial year 2019-20. Now the third recommendation was regarding augmenting the board strength and also the diversity of the board. Here board refers to the board of directors. So the top 2000 listed companies, in terms of market capitalization have to mandatorily have a minimum of 6 directors, and the top 1000 listed companies have to have a minimum of 1 women independent director. So in case of the top 1000 listed companies, 1 director should be women out of the 6 directors. It is compulsory. Now next recommendation is regarding the number of directorships. A person will not be allowed to hold the office of director in more than 8 listed companies at the same time. So maximum is 8 listed companies. Now apart from these recommendations, what else can be done in order to strengthen the corporate governance? The first one is to rate the audit firms. We have seen that it is because of improper auditing or improper disclosure by the audit firms that the understatement or the overstatement happens. So in order to solve that issue, the audit firms should be rated, and this can be in the scale of 0 to 10. And when this rating happens, what will happen? Those audit firms which will have the highest rating will be preferred by the companies or the firms. So naturally those audit firms who do not get a better rating will become weak audit firms and will not be preferred by the companies. So in order to keep up their score, they will perform better. So in that regard, rating of audit firms can help. The second one is regarding the audit reports. The audit reports must provide value added information to the shareholder. So audit reports are a way by which the shareholder gets to know about the company, the financial position of the company, the performance of the company, the policies adopted by the company, etc. So the audit reports must go beyond just the statement of financial position, but it should also provide value added information to the shareholder. Thirdly, there should be an independent audit committee. So this audit committee will help in overcoming the corporate shocks. In case of ILNFS, we have seen it was a corporate shock. So this audit committees will help in preparing for the corporate shocks more professionally. And the fourth one is regarding the critical positions of a company. In both private sector as well as in the public sector, there is a missing talent in the critical positions. So this issue needs to be addressed. The critical positions in a company, a firm or a bank should be filled by talented and skilled managers or professionals. They will be able to better govern the corporation or the firm, and they will also be able to bring up better guidelines, rules, mechanisms for the governance of the company or the bank. The next one is regarding the tenure of the top management. In the case of ICICI Bank, we have seen that long tenures of top management can be damaging. And also the manner in which the top management posts are filled, it needs to be re-examined. So how is top management post filled and for how long? These two questions should be re-examined and proper mechanisms should be evolved in order to answer these two questions. You can find the PDF of this lecture on my Facebook page. Thank you and wish you all a very good day.
क्या आप आईएएस की तैयारी कर रहे हैं और कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट्स को 2.5 लाख तक की फीस नहीं पे करना चाहते? अगर हाँ, तो 22,500 रुपए में घर बैठ के StudyIQ के पेन ड्राइव कोर्स के साथ आप आईएएस की तैयारी कर सकते हैं। आज ही विजिट करें StudyIQ.com।